Welcome back to AgriTalk from Kansas City, the National Association of Farm Broadcasting Convention, talking with folks from Syngenta. We're always happy to talk about anything but baseball with Chuck Foresman, brand manager for Syngenta Crop Protection. Very knowledgeable man about a lot of things. Baseball just doesn't happen to be one of them. The man's a Cub fan for some reason. I've never understood it, but we will move on, because when you talk Cubs, you're digressing so much. So I just have to move on here. Chuck, good to see you again. Hey, let's talk about another topic that's always in the news. That is atrazine and the constant review and attacks on atrazine. Now we have some new things from the World Health Organization. Is that right?
Well, that's right, Mike. The World Health Organization recently announced a new standard for atrazine in drinking water, and that's after a careful review of the available scientific data. It's been raised to 100 parts per billion. That's their recommendation, and I think it holds a lot of credibility, because this is an independent group, and so it's quite a bit higher than what we currently have in this country.
I was going to ask, how does that compare with the standard we have here?
Well, interestingly, the level we have here in this country is only 3 parts per billion. So it's an awful lot higher. And also relate to you that in Australia, they have a 40 part per billion limit, and in the UK it's 15. So this country it's quite low. But I think that if you take a look at what the World Health Organization has done here, I don't see how EPA can ignore it. It's very compelling.
We have these groups out here, and they're filing lawsuits and everything else against atrazine, who seem to think there should be no parts, nothing found at all in drinking water, and if anything is detected, no matter how minute amount, then it is somehow harmful.
Well, that's a part of this precautionary principle that it seems to be traipsing through the hallways of certain offices up there in Washington. And that's just not sustainable. That sort of thinking is not sustainable. That's not how we can be successful in agriculture, in running this country, etc. And by the way, I'd like to just mention how important atrazine is. We have a real problem in this country with glyphosate-resistant weeds. It's attracted attention by congressional committees recently up in Washington. A lot of people are aware of it. And so there's an issue there that really needs to be dealt with. Taking atrazine off the table is taking a tool away from growers to help manage this problem. I can't imagine. We have a farm in western Illinois, and I cannot imagine how we would control weeds on our farm long-term in a sustainable fashion without atrazine. It's just such an important part of anybody's weed management system. And I'll tell you, the first weed that they're going to have a problem with, if atrazine is either limited in any way or deregulated, is morning glory. And morning glory is such a terrible weed. You heard one of my colleagues mention just a few moments ago, giant ragweed as well. That is going to be a serious issue. So I'm worried, and I think that everybody should be concerned. But I will say this: I'm very pleased with the support that we're getting from the agricultural community, getting a lot of growers getting on agsense.org and the Triazine Network to know more about this issue.
Let's talk. We have consumers listening that have heard concerns raised about atrazine. They've heard these horror stories about the health effects if atrazine's in our drinking water and what it can do to people, what it could do to babies. They hear these stories. What should they know? I mean, but beyond the headlines and the scary things they've heard, what are the facts behind this?
They should know that there's over 6,000 studies up at EPA in support of the continued registration of atrazine. The stories that they hear and the sensationalization of these stories is driven by activists. Now, we need to make certain that our decisions that are taken to regulate herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, it must be based in science and on science. And so some of this early work is very sensationalized. And any information that's published, it must be reviewed, refereed. And I think there's just the uncertainty is unwarranted. In fact, this WHO report, it should provide, as I said earlier, enough fodder for EPA to really look carefully at the science, and it should have a big impact on what EPA does with atrazine, and it really should help sustain the licensing of atrazine in this country.
Has there been any proof of these claims of health effects, or health being harmed in any way?
No.
You talk about science and the fact that science says you can use it and not have a problem. Those that are saying otherwise, do they have any science to back up, or are they just saying, well, it's in there, we think it's causing a problem?
They may call it science, but it's the quality of the science that's at issue. It's the way the studies are run, and Syngenta's we have some very good scientists. EPA has very good scientists. The World Health Organization has very good scientists. Questions have been raised about these studies that are yet unanswered. We can't even get data from some of these studies, so It's as if there's an agenda, and it's as if there's something that folks want to get done with the use of pesticides in this country. And quite honestly, I believe there's activists in this country that like to see growers that are listening to your program right now not use any herbicides, any insecticides, or any fungicides. And but
still want us to somehow feed the world.
Yeah, they want us to feed 9 billion people by 2050. We've got to double the output in calorie production by 2050, and we have to do that with less land. So we really must adopt these safe technologies, and I'll say it again, atrazine is safe. It's completely unwarranted what's going on, and what EPA is doing is playing with the possibility of losing a lot of jobs if atrazine is banned.
And atrazine has been reviewed over and over.
It's been reviewed over and over again. 2006 was the last time that EPA looked at it very closely, and so it's one of those herbicides that they flog whenever they can.
But still, in fairness, we say, as always, proper use of these products, that's critical. Follow label directions.
Sure, and that's what I'm so proud of this company that I work for about. We do provide excellent directions of use. We have led the adoption of best management practices when it comes to using buffer zones around bodies of water, keeping a distance away from standpipes. We've really helped growers understand what they can do to help limit the amount of runoff. And that's the other comment I want to make about atrazine, is that atrazine is preferentially used in reduced till or no-till corn production systems. We take atrazine out of that. What you're going to find is more erosion, more plowing, more tilling. Why? Because they have to control these weeds. Nobody wants to do that. It's going to take more fuel, and it's just completely headed in the wrong direction.
Good to see you again. Thanks a lot.
Good to see you. Go Cubs.
Yeah, go farther down if that's possible. Chuck Foresman, brand manager for Syngenta Crop Protection, joining us here as we wrap up our broadcast and coverage of the National Association of Farm Broadcasting Convention in Kansas City. Coming up on Monday, we're going to talk about the numbers that are out now. How much money is given to oil companies in way of subsidies? Lots of oil subsidies. We have numbers to talk about, and we'll talk with Bob Deneen with the Renewable Fuels Association about challenges to E15. Have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us on AgriTalk.